We provided the wine that many of you are drinking, so a big thanks to that. Exactly.
Hi, so I'm with Silicon Valley Bank. My name is John Harms. We recently started a program called SVB Accelerator where we're really working with early stage startups, even at the pre-seed level. So I'd love to talk to anyone who's working there. And as probably most of you know, we work with companies from 2 employees up to billion-dollar companies. So feel free to come up and talk to me.
Quick reminder, everybody here, on Twitter we are #StartupExits. So if you guys are tweeting, that's the hashtag. Nathan, I'll let you take our panel discussion away. Oh, a little AV. Did I count wrong?
Are we mic'd?
Oh, we're just one mic.
Thanks, sir.
Didn't mean to get
All
you
right.
in trouble there.
Nathan, now you're on.
Are we good? Okay, our last panel of the evening, we have 4 mega acquirers sitting here with us tonight. Why don't we just go down the line and give a little introduction of who you are, where you work, and what you do. Ryan, please.
Great, thank you. So my name is Ryan Ate, and from Salesforce.com. It's great to be here tonight, and actually very exciting to see everybody in the audience. And there's so much passion here. I love it. You guys have to do more of these events, actually. So
We'll try.
December was your last one, I believe, right?
Yeah.
So you got to do more. Anyways, I've been with Salesforce for about 4.5 years, and have done the majority of the deals at the company. It's a great place. Company's growing really quickly, and in terms of my experience before that, I worked at Deloitte Consulting for about 8 years and did a little bit of investment banking prior to that, actually right before the dot-com bust. So I've kind of gone up and down and hopefully back up and up.
So we're going to draw a name out of a hat tonight, and Salesforce is going to buy your company. So
Yeah.
if
The
you're
question
feeling
is
lucky,
how much?
Yeah.
We can all buy.
I've done much. Yeah.
Please, Robbie.
Robbie Kwok. I'm from LinkedIn. We are not a mega acquirer just yet.
Getting there. You're on the path.
Aspirations, for sure. I've been at LinkedIn for about 1.5 years. I run the Corp Dev and Biz Dev team there. And prior to LinkedIn, was at Yahoo for about 8 years. And so I was actually there when Microsoft tried to buy Yahoo. And so, Rick, you are absolutely correct when you said that. And then prior to that was a banker for a number of years. So very excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Cool.
First of all, thanks again for everyone spending the time. I appreciate that. I'm Mark Brown. I run the corporate development group at Microsoft, overseeing all of Microsoft's M&A and strategic investment activity across the globe. I've been there for roughly 10 years, and before that I was a banker and a lawyer.
My name's Cian Wang. I'm from Intuit. I've been there for about 4 years. I came to Intuit from McKinsey. I was at McKinsey for several years in San Francisco. I started out after business school at Siebel Systems, where I did business development and sales strategy and operations. And before business school, I was actually a corporate lawyer on Wall Street. And I gave up the law to go back to business school, except I did my JD MBA the slow way, 5 years at 2 different schools. But I do both strategy and corporate development at Intuit.
Good. So I've got a couple teed up questions, canned questions, but start thinking about your questions. We actually had people, when you signed on to the website, put in some questions, so I've cherry-picked a few of those. Kind of the crowdsourcing method here. So let's start off with kind of planning and timing. When does a lot of interesting startups in the crowd here, a bunch of incubator companies and some other really cool startups. When does a startup start to think about exit? When do they start a dialogue with you guys? And who should they be talking to? Should they be getting your business card after this panel, or should they be going through biz dev or product group? I'll throw it out. Who wants to take this one?
Why'd you start?
Go for it, please.
All right. So that's actually an interesting question because there's really no perfect answer. And what I would say is, you are sort of your company. And so when you're out there talking to people, it's really important to be putting your best foot forward, showing your passion. I think Rick talked about passion and having really good products, focusing on that, focusing on trying to be the best you can. Not just focusing on the exit, not trying to figure out who's your which puzzle piece are you and which is the sort of end game. That's not usually the best move in my mind. In terms of who should you be talking to, I think you should be talking to the product organizations of various companies, understanding what's important to those companies, whether it's anyone in this panel or other venture capitalists, whatever it may be. Just kind of getting yourself out there and really understanding what makes acquirers tick, if that's where you're focused, or just in general other people. Maybe there's a company you want to get closer to, learn from, have some type of partnership with, etc. I think building those networks and relationships at especially the early stage is really critical.
Totally agree with that. I think you guys probably have heard this, I'm sure, but the best companies are bought, not sold. And so definitely focus on building your company. And when you build great things and people use it, all of us here will notice. And regardless of if you know anyone at the company, I'm sure they'll find you.
Yeah, I would agree as well. The Microsoft, the vast majority of things we buy are companies where our business groups have had some interaction with that company for some period of time before the acquisition. It doesn't necessarily have to be a defined commercial relationship, but knowing someone in the product groups is the most likely path. I'm happy to give you my business card after them.
Yeah, I mean, I would echo everything these other three gentlemen said. I don't think there's a right time to necessarily exit unless you think it's the right time for you. I will definitely reiterate that I think that it's absolutely crucial that you have the buy-in of the various business units or product groups, right? You can come in at the corporate level to one of us, but that's actually only going to get you so far if there's not a buy-in from the business group. Because at the end of the day, a business group is going to have to sign on for revenue targets and potentially also synergy targets. And none of us is signing up for that. And so unless they're on board, it's never going to go anywhere. So I think the most successful deals that I've seen come in through the business unit, where the business unit is already bought in as to the strategy, the fit with kind of the core capability, fit with the company, et cetera. Maybe there's even a partnership and a kind of a trial run before any acquisition. So those are the ones that are typically, I think, I've seen are the most successful. But I think it's that business unit connection as opposed to the corporate level connection that I think is really critical.
Of the deals you've done, broad question, how many are you actively hunting versus how many is there, established biz dev or some sort of relationship? Or maybe even simpler, how many of the deals you've done have the startups come to you versus you've approached them first, whether it's you or a product person in the entity?
We start on that.
Yeah, please.
I would say 90% we're the pursuer versus something gets thrown over the transom either from a banker, a VC, or the inbox for corporate development. I just think your chances of success are just far, far greater if you do that. Now, that said, I think there are certain things you can do to get introduced to the right people, figuring out where in the organization you fit, getting in contact with the right people in the business unit or the product groups, having meetings, et cetera. But I would say, in my experience, kind of 90% is the hunted versus the, we get contacted.
So maybe as we go down the line, adding to that question is how do you, Mark, Robbie, identify targets? Kind of give us a little insight into your process of, you're reading TechCrunch, you like the stats.
We're pretty close. It's probably more like 80-20. There are cases where we'll get something random over the transom. But part of my group's goal is to make sure that even when something comes in over the transom, we are thinking about what are the possible companies that are doing the same thing in Korea or Australia or Brazil, and to not be myopic about just because something came in through the front door that is the only thing that's out there. So we hopefully pride ourselves on making sure we're really doing the right diligence, and that sort of speaks to your question. I'm trying to suck up as much input and data, whether it's TechCrunch or there are other places and people in Europe that are very helpful in letting my organization know what's going on the ground in Europe. And then we have 1,000 or more biz dev people who are out there touching companies and are in the world. So I have a vast array of people to pull from, but it's my job to pull, despite how the deal actually first comes in the door.
Same thing for us. We've done 3 acquisitions since July of last year. When I joined in February, we decided that acquisition was an important part of growth for LinkedIn, and so we established a process, a framework, and one of the things we decided on is how do we source companies. And there's actually a lot of different ways that we do this. The traditional things where the media, TechCrunch, Mashable, all those things are great sources for us. There's the connections. We are LinkedIn after all, so a lot of friend of friends, coworkers of coworkers, VCs, bankers, etc. One of the things that I found was most unique, which was different from Yahoo, where I also did a bunch of acquisitions, was our open API program. A lot of developers use LinkedIn APIs, and we track that stuff pretty closely. We have dashboards, and we see what's taken off. We see how things change, and anytime we see something interesting, we definitely reach out and talk to companies. We want to be acquiring more on the early stage than the later stage. That's just how we're thinking about our acquisition philosophy, at least to start. But that doesn't mean that we won't do later stage or bigger dollar amount type stuff. But I think that since we're pretty new to the acquisition game, at least the company is, I have erred on the side of smaller teams, smaller acquisitions, do a few of those, make sure we get those right, and then go after the larger ones.
So, for Salesforce, I think it might be slightly different in the sense that we're focused on, our core business and growing our core business. And so to say that we're always hunting, I think it really depends. We're working collaboratively with, our product organization, our sales executives across the board to really understand what makes our customers wildly successful and what gets us out there. And as part of that, there may be certain companies, there may be certain entrepreneurs, technical individuals, et cetera, that look like great fit for Salesforce. And we've done deals of different sizes across the board. And, as we go into that process, I think, it's important to note that we try to learn the space, right? And so really understand who are the key players in a particular space without really getting too specific. What are the key players? Who are the leaders? Who are the innovators? And how will they help to sort of make us, for example, more social, open, and mobile, which is what we're focused on as a company. That would be sort of my overall comment.
Let's stick with you for a minute. Salesforce has been a fairly active acquirer. Of the folks you've acquired over the past 12, 18 months, did you have existing relationships with them, with most of them? And maybe talk about how that fed to a deal or led to a deal.
Yeah, so absolutely. I think in every case, at least that I can think of, we've always had a very close relationship, whether it's a product management organization, whether it's our CEO, whether it's someone else in the company. And, we're usually brought along in the process just because we try to work as closely as we can. We're not walled off, which is good in terms of just getting a little bit more exposure and get a little bit more breadth in terms of, what's happening. But definitely we had a relationship. I would say we try to, if a company's built on our platform, for example, if a company is an App Exchange partner, just being very specific, as well as if a company's has an integration with Salesforce, that's very important to us, just so we can know the people, the business, and how it would potentially work within our company, and also just to get to know the entrepreneurs.
Okay, good. Let's get to the fun questions of valuation and negotiation, and I'll put it like this: how do big deals happen? Salesforce just had a big deal with Radian6. Put on the professor lecturer hat and tell these guys in the audience how they can optimize for valuation and how some of these deals happen. Is it strategic value? I mean, they're acquisition hires. How do you set a price on these deals?
Good question. Tough question.